Hey all, Scott here, and I own Sonic Jam! It's a pretty rare game, but I don't want to be known as the guy who owns Sonic Jam when I'm dead.
If you tell somebody you collect video games, you are most definitely going to get the question, what's the rarest game you own?
Come back to me on that one.
I firmly believe if you want to collect stuff and have fun while doing it, it's best to do it with things you legitimately enjoy and not just collect it because, ooh, it's worth something. I collect the games I want to collect and play eventually. The rarity or value hardly matters to me. However, it is still fairly interesting to know. I mean, I bought Gravity Rush Remastered because I wanted it, but hey, now that it's $70, I guess this is my personality now. But that's beside the point. There aren't infinite copies of all video games available. I know it feels like there's a Connected Ventures every few inches, but I guarantee you there's a finite amount. Some video games are as common as leaves, but then there are the video games that just never sold that well or just never had a ton of copies produced. Now, a game can be rare right from the get-go, but mostly the value increases over time as more and more people realize, oh god, that's a rare game, I want that. But let's lay this out right here. Rare games aren't always valuable, and valuable games aren't always rare. A game's value comes down to how many people want it and how many people are willing to pay a hefty price for it. I can make a house out of all the Mario Party 2s out in the world, but a lot of people really want that game right now, so it costs nearly as much as a new game. But it ain't rare, that's for sure. But then you have whatever the hell this is. A pre-owned copy of Madden 93 for the Sega Genesis, complete with a specific cardboard box for pre-owned games. I guarantee you this is far more rare than Mario Party 2, but you won't see anybody breaking down my door for this.
Maybe.
Technically, any copy of any game can be slightly altered to become the rarest version of that game. See? Here? Look. One of a kind. The only thing that'll make this valuable is if somebody is willing to pay $300 for it.
Everybody's obsessed with the rarest games of all time, owning the rarest games of all time, playing the rarest games of all time. As long as they're worth something. Now I'm only interested in picking up rare games that I want to play really bad, but I'm willing to make an exception for the sake of investing. I want to find the rarest game of all time to help me pay off some fun debt.
Well, what do I constitute as a rare game? Well, something that's uncommon, of course. I think the only rare games that get attention are the ones that sell for ridiculous amounts of money. You couldn't pay me to pay this much. It doesn't help that a lot of articles go up detailing old vintage things you might have in your attic that might be worth a fortune. Yeah, an original Game Boy is rare. It's like $700. Yeah, okay, no. I mean, all you have to do to feel better about owning something is to search for it on eBay and sort the listing from highest price first. I'll think about it. I remember when a bunch of people thought they totally scored after a bunch of articles appeared online saying the VHS tapes of old Disney movies were selling for That's not the case. That's how much some sellers are asking for these things. Are people buying for that much?
I hope not.
The value of rare items is only as much as people are willing to spend on them. In my opinion, no game is worth more than the original asking price of it. And even then, Sushi Striker retail for $50, my god. A pretty surefire way to know the true value of a game isn't to go on eBay and say, welp. It's to go on price charting websites. These track how much games sold for over time, so you know the average going price of these things. But if I'm gonna pay top dollar for a game, it may as well be the rarest of all time. But hey, who knows? Let's look through my collection and see if I already own rare games. Well, this is it. These are the elusive games in my collection. I own a lot of heavily desired games that go for a lot of money, but these ain't rare. Like, I own a copy of Shenmue, please like me. I own a copy of Sonic Jam on the Sega Saturn.
That's fucking right.
This is probably the rarest game I have. I mean, I have Gravity Rush Remastered, a few uncommon Wii U titles, Chibi Robo, Retro Game Challenge, Xenoblade Chronicles, nothing that crazy. I have Metal Slug Anthology for the PlayStation 2. This was a fairly uncommon game for that system for a while there. I found it for $60 and I scooped it up. The value now is I find the value of games to fluctuate like crazy over time. It generally has to do with what's the big nostalgia craze and what's not easily accessible. For that reason, GameCube is fairly expensive now, while a lot of the value of older consoles around the NES era aren't necessarily shooting up in value. The big nostalgia boom for that thing was around 2010, but now it's Chibi Robo's time to shine. Look at that! But we're not just looking for expensive games, we're looking for something that's one of a kind, the rarest of all games. Well, we're not really gonna find much in terms of the more modern consoles. The older the system gets, the harder it is to find stuff for it, and thus the rarer and more expensive some games get. Now, we do have a ton of companies that specialize in limited releases for games recently, but they usually produce a few thousand copies of games. That's just not rare enough. Who knows, I mean, these things might skyrocket in value in 10 years, but for now, get out of my face, Night Trap. 5,000 copies, big fucking time bomb of profit. There is that game for the PlayStation 4 that I refuse to say because I'll fucking die laughing. This had a similar limited release strategy with only around 1,000 copies produced. However, the company that sold it was run by one guy who ripped off the Limited Run Games logo, sold the game on April Fool's Day on a website that looks like something you should give your credit card to. Many just thought the release was a joke, but it happened. Only around 80 people bought copies, and the 900 or so copies that were left unsold, well, who knows what happened to them. So this takes the reins for the current rarest game of all time. Let me point this away from the door in case anybody walks in.